friends, it's Paige Evans. Welcome back to a new process video. I want to share with you a few of my favorite hand stitches. A chain link stitch, a back stitch, and a French knot. I'm using my Shine Bright Star for stitching cut file, so I'm double clicking the Studio 3 file and it automatically opens up in Silhouette Studio. And it's basically just a bunch of holes that the machine will cut that I can then hand stitch through. So I'm centering it on the background. I'm switching to a ratchet blade. That's the blade I prefer, making sure it's set to cardstock textured. I have the blade set to a depth of 3, the speed is 4, and then I'll send. So it takes about 8 minutes for the machine to create all of the holes. So here you can see, sometimes the holes don't go all the way through, but I can still see them, and that's what I need as a template for hand stitching. I also want to show you how to do this with your Cricut. So open up Design Space, click New Project, and Upload. Drag and drop the SVG file. It's very important, the SVG. And it might take a minute to load because there's so many little dots, and click Save, and then you can click on it and insert image. And again, it might take a while, and you can see on the layers, it's just hundreds and hundreds of dots. And if you were to try and cut it, you can see that what shows up on the mat is just a whole bunch of random dots, which is not what we're going for. So we need to weld all of the dots together so that it maintains its original shape. So you want to select everything on all of these layers and click weld, and it actually takes a minute or two for Design Space to complete this command. And then once it's all welded together, it becomes the one single shape and it's good to go. Click on Make It, and then you continue on your merry way, having the Cricut cut out these holes just like the cameo. It's probably the same process for a brother. I'm not sure, I don't have that machine, but if you use the SVG, it should work out. You may have to weld to have it be this shape, and here we go. Let's start stitching. So I'm grabbing my boxes of embroidery threads. I want to create a monochromatic look, so I am picking a similar tone of yellow thread. I'm using all 6 strands of DMC embroidery floss and a needle, making a knot at the end, and then to create a chain link stitch, I'm bringing the needle up through the hole and then going into the next hole. And because I create loops, it looks like 2 strands, so I'm actually going to repeat. That's the only time I'm ever going to do this. Go up the next hole and then loop around those 2 stitches and go back down through the same hole. That creates the chain link. It's just links all together. Go up through the next hole, pass your needle under the loop to connect them together. Pull your thread. Don't pull it too tight, just pull it taut so it's tight enough, but it's not so tight that you're tearing the paper. And this is just something that takes practice, and it takes some time and some effort. Hand stitching is one of those activities that takes a really long time, but the results are worth it if it's something you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy hand stitching, that's totally okay too. There are other things that bring you joy that you can do, and this is something that brings me joy, and that's why I love doing it. So here's just a little snippet continuing on, stitching right through the holes that my machine made. What I love about having the machine cut the holes instead of me poking them, just eyeballing it, is the holes are perfectly spaced, and that makes the stitching look neater and prettier. So I'm almost out of thread, so I'm tying a little knot on the back, trimming off the excess thread, and then I am going to continue stitching. But what's different is this time I'm not going to stitch those 2 lines at the very beginning. I am just going to bring my needle up through the hole and pass it underneath that last loop, those last threads, and continue on. But first, adding needle onto the thread, again making a knot at the end. So here I'm going up through that next hole, bringing my needle and thread all the way through until the knot stays, and then passing my needle around to create that loop. And then just continuing on. I think it took about 5 or 6 hours to stitch with the chain link stitch through or around the star and this word that says bright. And then I'll show you how to do a back stitch through the word shine. So here we go. And around the corners it gets a little tricky. I haven't exactly perfected the technique of sharp corners. You can see I'm just going to fudge along. I try not to pull it too tight when I'm going around sharp corners like this. If you pull it too tight, then the thread, it won't be a sharp, crisp corner. So make it a little bit looser when you're going around those kinds of corners. All right, almost done. This is the last stitch, turning it over and tying it off into a knot, and then trimming off the excess thread. And here is the chain link stitch. Ta-da! I forgot to mention that sometimes I wear a glove because my hands get sweaty while I'm doing this under the bright, warm lights, and so I have to wear a glove so that my cardstock doesn't warp. I am going to do a back stitch now. This is a very basic stitch. I'm choosing a lighter color of yellow. Again, all 6 strands of DMC embroidery floss, tying a knot at the end. Bring your needle up through the first hole, go out the next hole. And then you're going to bring it up through the next hole and then go back into the previous hole. Go out the next hole and bring it back down through the previous hole. Repeat until you're done, basically. So you bring it up through the next hole and go down through the previous hole. And you don't want to pull it too tight. The word I like to use is taut. If you pull it too tight, you're going to tear your cardstock, and that's no good. So I stitched this as I was watching my friend Vicki Booten do a live class on Facebook, and she's so inspiring, and it was great to work on my thing and get inspired by what she was doing. A perfect Friday night. Next, I've grabbed a variety of star punches. One's from American Crafts, a couple are from Fiskars, and I've grabbed all of the yellow pattern papers from my new Wonders collection, which starts shipping in March. It's been delayed at the ports in California just because of COVID, so it's taking a little bit longer to get shipped out, but it's well worth the wait. So I am punching a large star and a medium star and a small star from all of the yellow pattern papers. I've grabbed the 12 by 12 and the 6 by 8 with the foiling details on them, and I'm trying to fill in all of the empty spaces inside the star. With the layout that I did previously with this very similar technique, I didn't have any of the hearts overlapping, so they all had their own individual space. But here I'm going to let the stars overlap just a little bit so that I can have more of them, and I just like the way it looks. So I am adding a tiny bit of adhesive onto the back of the stars because now I'm going to do a French knot through the center of all of the stars. And to do this, I didn't want to use too much adhesive. I didn't want to gum up my needle or this paper piercer. So a little dab of adhesive and then poke a hole through the center of all the stars. I'm choosing one more color of yellow thread using all 6 strands for the ultimate thickness, and then I am threading the needle and tying a knot at the end. So this will be the 3rd type of stitching. So what you're going to do is bring your needle up through the hole. I could have used slightly more adhesive on the back of that star, wrapping the thread twice around the needle and then bringing the needle back down through that exact same hole. Be careful not to get your needle caught on the knot that is on the back. You don't have to worry about that continuing on. Bring your needle up through the next hole, wrap the thread around the needle twice, and then go back down through that same hole, and this creates a pretty little French knot. So go up through the next hole, pull it taut, wrap the thread around the needle twice, go back down through the same hole. If it gets too loose, no worries, just wrap it around again twice. And my thread got tangled right here. So I was worried that it wouldn't work, but it actually ended up working out. So just pull the thread down and continue making French knots until you've gone through all the holes and made a knot through all of the stars. So we've now seen how to create a chain link stitch, a back stitch, and a French knot. I'm actually going to do one more stitch, a cross stitch, to dot the eye, but only one. So I will see if I have a link to a previous video showing how to do a cross stitch, basically just making X's. I used one more confetti star punch to make teeny tiny stars and popped those up with foam squares in the empty spaces. I have this photo of Jane that I added before adhering all the stars down. This was taken a few years ago in Iceland, and I just loved the yellow background. I thought it coordinated well with this layout. I'm now doing journaling in between the words shine and bright, and because this is a monochromatic layout, I wanted to use a yellow pen to write the journaling, but none of the yellows that I own were showing up on the yellow cardstock, so I chose a darker yellow, almost brown, and wrote my journaling with that pen. First, I drew the lines with a pencil and a ruler to make sure I was writing straight, and then underlined the journaling with the same pen. This is a Star Knockouts border punch that I've had from American Crafts over a decade, maybe even 12 years or so, and added some whimsy on the edge of all four edges. Just punched a little star border. So now I'm grabbing some yellow embellishments from my New Wonders collection, a yellow heart, a yellow tab stickers, some of the yellow washi tape, and doing a few clusters of embellishments on the edges to draw your eye all around the page. Jane is still obsessed with birds, so anytime I can add a bird on her layouts, I will do so. And there are quite a few yellow embellishments in Wonders. Grabbing the cardstock stickers, there's an 8-page sticker book, and here's where I'm doing the cross stitch to dot that eye. So you'll need 4 holes for this. There's only 1 hole that's included in the cut file in the word bright, and so I just punched 3 more holes with the needle and made a cross, basically a little X. Tied that off. I'm going to stamp the date using this old October afternoon. I miss them. Roller date stamp with yellow ink on that label. And then I felt like the bottom was empty, so I'm just grabbing a yellow tulip die cut and a dream banner sticker and clustering them down at the bottom, and I feel like that evens everything out. I hope you were inspired by this layout to give stitching a try, whether you do a chain link stitch, a back stitch, or French knots. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.